Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Are you ready to have some fun?
Yeah!
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, you go, Carla. Yes. I'd like to welcome you all to the 11th Annual Youth Summit. This is a conference for youth and emerging leaders. Remember that, youth and emerging leaders. Right now, we have some parents in the room that at 5 o'clock, Mike, they're going to be leaving and going to another area. But we have an opportunity for them to participate in some of these keynote activities. So remember that, parents, at 5 o'clock, oof, off you go to the room across the hallway. The door will be open, and we will have parent fun. So on behalf of the Family Cafe, who is a program that which is an entity that houses a program of the Florida Youth Council, I'd like to again welcome you. My name is Lori Fahey, and you're going to have fun. If this is your first time here, raise your hand. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. So we hope you have fun. And I'm going to go over a little bit about what's going to be happening in the next couple of days. This is your official conference program right here. Okay? I want you to share this with your family tonight. Either say, yeah, Mom, here it is. Dad, whomever. Or tell them about which sessions you're going to go into tomorrow. You're going to start out today and tomorrow in this room for what we refer to as a welcome session. That's just for me to give you an overview of what's going to be happening tonight. After our keynote address, you're going to come back in this room tonight for a movie where we have popcorn and candy galore. Our movie tonight is, can anybody guess? The Greatest Showman. Have you seen the movie? Okay, so who hasn't seen The Greatest Showman? Wow, you are in for a treat, let me tell you. At this time, though, I'd like to introduce you to the Florida Youth Council members, and I'm going to have their leader, Nikki Germain, come up and welcome, and do a little welcome for you.
Hi, everyone. We ready to have some fun? Yeah? All right, so I would like to introduce the Florida Youth Council members. I first am going to introduce myself. I am Nikki Germain. I am over the Florida Youth Council. I am the youth advisor. So, yes. Okay, so Serena Whitmore is right here in the front. So that's... And then you have Derek Colway right there. And then you have Dakota Smoot. Please stand.
Stand up.
Stand up. Spin around and say hi to everybody. All right. And then you have Ian Harowitz right there. Stand up. And you have Alexander in the back. So yes, we would love to welcome you to the Youth Summit, and we hope everybody has a blast. Oh yes, and Christina Waldron is right there in the back. I'm sorry, I did not see her. And Josh will be here. He is running late due to work, sorry, but he will be here. And Rocky, he unfortunately can't make it, and neither can Chevy Burns. So.
Just want to give a shout out to Chevy Burns. Why she couldn't be here? You know, she's Miss Wheelchair Florida, and that's a great honor, guys. Sheer pageant. She is Miss Wheelchair Florida, and she is representing Florida at the national level this weekend. So we all wish her well and hope everything goes good. Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to have Lori introduce the next speaker that we will have tonight.
Wow is right. You are in for a treat. Yes, good. Keep that momentum going. Yes. So I have the honor to introduce your keynote speaker this afternoon and tomorrow morning. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to enjoy this keynote opportunity. Okay? Mike Veny is his name. Like the Veny, okay? Okay. Have you known someone who struggles with any mental health issues? No. You yourself struggle with a mental health issue. No. Do you want to learn a better way to manage your own mental health issues? No. Yes, Carla. Yes, Carla. Okay. How do you really transform the stigma surrounding mental health? Mike has managed to overcome a lifetime of mental health challenges to become a professional drummer and one of America's leading mental health speakers. His advocacy work has been featured on TV on ABC, NBC, and CBS News. He's also the writer for Corporate Wellness Magazine, HealthCentral.com, and delivered TED Talks entitled Mental Illness is an Asset. As a 2017 Elite Award winner, Mike was recognized as one of the 100 most influential people in the healthcare industry. He starred in several Recovery Drives documentary films, 2 of which were featured in the 2017 Real Minds film series. In his spare time, and it doesn't sound like he has a lot of spare time, he enjoys exercising, meditating, and enjoying a good meal with friends. He lives in New York City and has a pet fish, betta fish, who's also some mental health challenges. Poor fish. Helping us to transform stigma today is Mike Veny. Please give him a hand as we welcome him on stage.
Thank you.
You have to help her to say yes. Okay, but otherwise you'll hear no all day.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Hi, everybody. Hi. I'm excited because I am in Florida again, and I came in from New York, flew in today, and I'm super excited to be here because I was on the plane. I flew Delta, and I usually fly Delta, and I was actually thinking about the first time that I ever came to Florida. And I was remembering when I was in 8th grade, my parents took my brother and I to Florida, and we flew Delta. And during that trip, my parents had to constantly yell at me on the plane because I could not behave myself. But this plane ride, I was behaved. And so today, I'm going to share with you some of my journey that I've been through. I'm one of the few adults that you will ever meet that absolutely loves his job. Love my job so much. I can't wait to get up. I can get up at 4 a.m. for work, and I'm super happy to go to work. And each day, I get to travel around the country and speak about mental health. I get to write about mental health, and I'm also a drummer. And I'm just going to share with you how I got to where I am. And the cool thing is, in my life now, I have a wonderful life, but I still struggle with mental health challenges like I did as a youth. But I would like to dedicate my presentation today to someone very special. I'd like to dedicate it to my hamster. He's dead, but he's been dead for a few years, but I want to dedicate it to him. The hamster had some mental health problems too, and that's okay. But my fond memory of my hamster was when I had to take him to a veterinarian. I had never been to a veterinarian before, and for those of you that haven't been, veterinarians are very expensive. And so my little tiny little 2-inch hamster, he had something in his eye. So one eye was open and the other eye was closed. And so I took him to the veterinarian, and it's like a little doctor's office, like for pets. And so we're in the veterinarian's office, and the veterinarian puts on his rubber gloves and tries to hold my little 2-inch hamster. And my little hamster bit the veterinarian. So he has to go out the room now and get a nurse. So now we have 2 grown adults trying to restrain my little 2-inch hamster. So my little hamster ends up biting her. She storms out of the room, and I heard her in the hall talking smack about my hamster. She said she was not going to go back in the room with that hamster. So part of me is thinking, my hamster's cool. And the other part of me is getting really anxious. Something felt very uncomfortable about this. Finally, we got 3 adults to restrain my little 2-inch hamster. And we got him the help that he needed. From that day on, I promised myself that I would never go to a veterinarian again. Because seeing my hamster get restrained reminded me way too much of being in a mental hospital. And I've been there way too many times, and I don't ever want to do that again. When people ask me about my mental health challenges, I've been diagnosed with so many things, so I can't even tell you what's going on. But the only way to really describe my challenges to you is by describing something that I really love in this world, food. I love food. If you want to be my friend, you gotta like food. And some people consider that shallow, but that's me. And at home, I live in New York City. I love to cook when I'm home. And when I describe my kitchen, I love talking about it because it's very, very simple. My kitchen has a big oven. And for those of you that know appliances, I'm not talking about a Best Buy oven. I'm talking about a Viking restaurant oven. This thing is about this big, and it's got 4 burners on it. And typically on this burner right here, simmering in a frying pan, is my obsessive-compulsive disorder. Someone said something to me a few days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. Right over here on this burner is my anxiety. I got a bunch of people looking at me. I don't know you people, and I'm nervous up here. Right over here on this burner is my anger and depression. I could snap at any moment. And right over here is a stock pot. And I take the ingredients from each frying pan, put it into the stock pot, close the lid, and turn up the heat. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a problem waiting to happen. And if you're following me so far, the kitchen I'm talking about is not in my home. The kitchen is in my head. I've been living in this kitchen my whole life. It's made it really difficult for me to make friends. It's made it hard for me in school. It made it really hard for my parents. And I still struggle with a lot of these same issues today. And when I talk about mental health, I'm not a mental health professional, and what I'm talking about when I say mental health is thoughts, feelings, and behavior. If any one of those is having a challenge, you're having a mental health challenge. I'm also going to talk about stigma. And the definition of stigma is a mark of shame, feeling ashamed about your challenges, whatever they are. But interestingly, ladies and gentlemen, stigma is also about thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Thoughts are stereotypes. Feelings are prejudice. And behavior is discrimination. Thoughts are stereotypes. You were going to a mental health presentation today. You might have had a stereotype in your head about what you were going to hear. Feelings are prejudice. Every time I walk in the room, you might think that something's wrong with me, and you just might keep your distance. And behavior is discrimination. You all didn't want me to sit at the table. So these things make up stigma, and stigma not only affects people with mental health challenges, but with any disability that's out there. We're affected by stigma. And what happens is people don't get the help that they need. And today, I flew down from New York because I promise you that I'm going to give you some real tools to transform stigma in your own life. I promise you that. So I said to you before, mental health is about thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And that's interesting because you cannot see anyone's thoughts. We like to think we can feel people's feelings, but you can absolutely observe their behavior. And that's where things started for me. I was younger and had a lot of behavior problems. I thought I was a bad kid. Mommy and Daddy used to take me to lots of doctors, and they said I was bad because I used to hit my little brother, and I got angry and I would snap. And I just thought something was wrong with me and I was bad. So my parents decided to put me in this place called Catholic school, where they figured the nuns would straighten me out. You know this is not going to go good, right? This is not going to go good. So they put me in Catholic school. And you know what? No, I give them credit. They really wanted the best for me. They wanted to give me discipline. But I just had a hard time with behavior, especially when an adult spoke down to me. If I felt an adult was speaking down to me, I would just snap and get so angry, and I couldn't control myself, you know? And I did good the first 2 years of Catholic school. Second grade and third grade were really good. But in fourth grade, I got that teacher, the one teacher that nobody wanted to have. Now, we've all had this experience in school where there's this one teacher that has a reputation that nobody wants to get that teacher. Well, in my school, her name was Sister Pat. And she was known as this very evil nun. And total side note, my brother actually went to an event for the school a few years ago. Sister Pat's been dead for many years. But he went to an event for the school. Everyone's an adult now. And they were actually talking bad about Sister Pat. So it wasn't just me. But that doesn't matter. So I remember it like it was yesterday. I got into fourth grade, and I knew that on day one, Sister Pat and I were not going to work out together. And I tend to be one of those people that always has a smile on my face. And I was sitting in the back of the room, in the back row, with a smile on my face. And Sister Pat, my teacher in fourth grade, told me to wipe the smile off my face. Now I said the thing you're not supposed to say to your fourth grade teacher. I said, no. Now you know how that works in fourth grade. Everybody goes, ooh, like something's going down. So Sister Pat then approached me, and she started yelling at me. And I got really angry. And I started saying some things back to her that I'm not going to repeat on this stage. And then she came up to me and tried to pull me by the arm and take me out of my desk. And I punched my teacher. She then took holy water and threw it on me and called me the devil. I took the holy water off and threw it back at her and said, put this on your wrinkles. I was not going back to that school. That night, Mommy and Daddy had a very serious talk with me about respect. They were really mad that I would do something like that, and I got expelled from school. And I told them very honestly in fourth grade, I said, look, nobody has a right to talk down to me. And they said it didn't matter. I said, nobody has a right to talk down to me. I'm 39 years old. Nobody has a right to talk down to me. I don't punch people anymore, though. Back to fourth grade. So September, I got expelled in the fourth grade, right? So my parents needed to put me somewhere because I needed to go to school. They found another school where my uncle was the principal. They figured it'd be good for him if he straightened out little Michael, and good for me. Well, long story short, I go into the second school in fourth grade, and after 3 weeks and several fights, a desk mysteriously flying out of my hands. It mysteriously flew out. I don't know what happened to it. I got expelled. 2 expulsions in the fourth grade. And my parents knew something was wrong. Like really, really wrong. All the while, my younger brother Jason was just doing just fine. 2 expulsions in the fourth grade. But the rest of fourth grade was the best school year ever. 1 hour of home tutoring every single day. Loved it. And this tutor, like I didn't have to really do any work because she was so scared of me, she wouldn't even make eye contact with me. And she would just quickly get out of the house. I loved it. The summer between fourth grade and fifth grade was really interesting. That summer was when Mommy and Daddy took me to see Batman. Do we have any Batman fans in the room? Okay, good. I got my Batman fans. Now, I love Batman, and for those of you, especially the adults in the room that are hardcore Batman fans, I'm not talking about Ben Affleck or Christian Bale. I'm talking about Michael Keaton starring as Batman, and Jack Nicholson was the Joker. Love that movie. So, and you know, the interesting thing about Jack Nicholson, he's the star of a film called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He and I have the exact same birthday, but that's a whole nother conversation. But needless to say, they took me to see Batman. I loved it, and they promised me if I behaved, I could be Batman or the Joker for Halloween. They promised me if I behaved. And interestingly, at the end of the movie, the Joker actually plunges to his own death from falling off of a gargoyle. And shortly after that movie, when I got home, I plunged, not to my own death, but into a rage. And I want to explain what a rage is. It's one thing to get angry, but when you're in a rage, you're angry for hours and you can't stop. Nothing could stop me. My parents tried to restrain me. I couldn't stop. I was punching walls. I was throwing things. My parents tried to do everything they could. I could not stop. And the next thing I know, I don't know why I was in a rage. I still don't know. And that's a great question, why I was in a rage. And by the way, at the end, I'm going to take actually a lot of questions, so keep your questions on your mind there. I really don't know why I was in a rage. And even nowadays, I still try to explore through therapy what makes me angry. I still struggle. And it's interesting for the parents in the room. I actually want to say something on behalf of the youth, that a lot of times when us youth say we don't know, we really don't know. It's the truth. We're not trying to hide something. So very, very important to know that. And so the next thing I know, because of my rage, I was put in a mental hospital. And for those of you that have been in a mental hospital, it's a scary place. And even though they tell you you're there to get better, it's a scary place. And you know something is wrong with you. My parents would come visit me and say everything's going to be okay, and we just got to work some things out. But I knew something was wrong with me. And I remember feeling very, very scared in the mental hospital, but I quickly learned the secret to getting out of the mental hospital. There's a secret. The secret is you have to prove that you have coping skills. If you prove you have coping skills, they let you out. And that's what I did. I made up some really good story, had coping skills, they let me out in 3 weeks. Perfect. After that, I was put in special education in the 5th grade. And I want to say something about those of you that might be in special education, that it was a wonderful experience because I got extra attention, but I also knew that I was different than the other kids in school, no matter what my parents tried to tell me. I knew that I was different. And I had this teacher, she was probably the only teacher that I never messed with. I saw this woman recently. She's about 5 feet tall. I keep my distance now. I am just scared of this woman for some reason. But I did find a way to annoy her. I would tap on my desk and make beats. I loved making beats on my desk, just tapping on my desk. And eventually, they let me go into the drum class. I loved the drum class because it was just so much fun to hold drumsticks. I think about it now. When I was at my angriest, I got to hold drumsticks and it just felt good to play music. But no parent wants their kid playing drums at home. So my parents tried to really talk me out of it. In 5th grade, I started to experience a thing called depression. I'm 10 years old. I started to experience a thing called depression. Most youth start to experience it in teenage years, but some of us experience it younger than that. And when you have depression, it's a very confusing thing, especially if you're 10 years old. I can't articulate it and say, I'm depressed. I knew something was wrong. And the thing is, when it comes to mental health challenges, we want a solution. We just want to take the pain away. And so I had a solution. I came home one day from school and didn't want to be in pain anymore. And I decided to take all my pills and try to take my own life. And I almost died, but my mom found me and rushed me to the hospital. If she didn't do that, I wouldn't be alive today. It makes me really upset to think about it, but I was so angry at her at the time because I just wanted the pain to go away. I just wanted the pain to stop. After that, things started to get a little bit better with me. And 5th and 6th grade, I'm still playing drums a little bit more in school. In 7th grade, things started to backslide. I'm a lot bigger and I'm a lot stronger. And when I'm going into rages at home, it's not a rage anymore when you're 13, by the way. I just want to put that out there. It's called violence. I'm just going to be honest with you. I hate to admit it as your speaker, but I was violent towards my parents, towards my younger brother. I couldn't help it. I got so angry and didn't know what to do with it. And I also started to do a thing called self-harming. And I'm really bringing this up too because I know that self-harming is a problem in this room, not just with youth, with adults. It's a really big problem. I've learned that there are 3 reasons why people self-harm. A lot of times people say, why would someone do that to themselves? Why would someone self-harm? There are 3 reasons. Number 1, people self-harm because they think it takes away the pain. That's what I thought. By self-harming, it takes away the pain. Technically, for a second it does, but that's it. It actually makes things worse. The second reason people self-harm, believe it or not, it can become an addiction. It can actually become an addiction. So each week that I travel the United States, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of shaving this head right here. I gotta shave this head. And I gotta go into a CVS or Walgreens and buy razors to shave my head. Sometimes I linger too long in that aisle thinking I need to buy extra because that became an addiction. So if you are self-harming, understand 2 things. You're trying to take away pain and it's really not taking away pain. And it can become an addiction if it's not already. The third reason people self-harm is they think it's cool. If you are self-harming, you need to stop. It's not doing anything for you. I promise you that. And I encourage you to get help and talk to an adult about it. And if you know someone who's self-harming, you need to tell an adult about it. It's not good for anyone. But back to 7th grade. I'm back in 7th grade, acting out at home, self-harming, angry beyond belief, and I was hospitalized once again in a mental hospital. And this time they weren't buying my story about coping skills. I was actually in a mental hospital for 6 months. Had to spend Christmas in the mental hospital. And you know what the hard part about it is? You can't tell your friends about it. Like, nobody comes to visit you. You don't get a giant card or a big teddy bear from the class. Your parents have to make up a story. So they made up a story that something happened to me. So I'm in the mental hospital for 6 months, and eventually I started to get privileges because I wanted to get out eventually, and I got weekend passes. And so I would go home on the weekends with my family, and my family, all they wanted to do was do family activities. They wanted to go to the park, go to the movies, all that stuff, but I didn't want to do any of that stuff. So when I went home on the weekends in 7th grade, I locked myself in the bedroom and played drums to LL Cool J and Red Hot Chili Peppers for the whole weekend. I would come out sweaty and go back to the mental hospital. That was 7th grade. I am proud to say that between 7th and 10th grade, I was on a first-name basis with the local police, the local emergency room. I knew their kids' names, their favorite sports teams. I was constantly in crisis. I was the kid that nobody wanted their kid hanging out with. And it was really hard because I was really lonely, and it was really hard for me to make friends. And again, all that time, I knew something was wrong with me, and I felt a lot of shame. In 10th grade, by the time that I had finished 10th grade, I had gotten expelled from 3 schools, hospitalized in a mental hospital 3 times, had several suicide attempts, was self-harming and violent at home. My parents had a real problem on their hands, and they just wanted their best for me. All the while, my brother Jason was doing good. He's getting good grades, he's got friends, everything is good with Jason. But that summer was an interesting summer for me because it was a summer that changed my life. See, that summer, I personally thought that I was just going to get to quit school and not have to go back. But my parents had other plans. That summer, my mother approached me. I was actually in the driveway, bouncing a basketball, and she approached me, and she had what I call the mommy look on her face. Do we know what the mommy look is? And I want to say something about mothers because I know we have mothers in the room. I love mothers. But as a group, mothers are the sneakiest people on the planet. Sneaky. And they like band together like ninjas, and they come together and do stuff. But they do this thing where they give you this look like you know they're up to something, but you're not sure what it is. So Mommy approached me that summer with the mommy look, and she said, Michael, I want to talk to you. And I took a step back. I said, what do you want to talk about? She said, I have a question. I knew this was a mommy trick. What's your question? She asked me, Michael, what would make you happy? I paused. This is a mommy trick. And I said, what do you mean? She said, just answer the question, what would make you happy? And I told her the truth. The only thing that's going to make me happy is playing drums. I don't have any friends. I'm not good at any sports. Nobody likes me. The only thing that would make me happy is playing the drums. So with the mommy look on her face, she goes, thank you for telling me. Let's talk about this in a week. Why a week? Now, I want to say something about me. I am the most impatient person on the planet. Don't give me a week. So that whole week, I wanted to know what my mother was up to. I knew she was up to something. I would ask her, and she just had this weird smile on her face. Didn't say anything to me. I said, Mommy, what's going on? She said, we'll talk about it on Saturday. I said, no, tell me! She said, calm down. She said, calm down, Michael. We'll talk on Saturday. I would never get up early on a Saturday, but this one Saturday, I was up at 6 a.m. And I came downstairs. I said, Mommy, what's going on? And she told me that she found a performing arts high school that would accept me to play drums most of the day.
Oh, wow.
I get really emotional when I think about it because it was the first time in my life I felt hope. It was the first time in my life, I felt happiness because nothing else worked. They had me on 7 medications. It wasn't working. All these therapists, but this was the only thing that worked. I'll never forget going into performing arts high school. I was about the same height that I am now. I was about 50 pounds lighter, and I had hair. I miss that hair. And there I was amongst my fellow musicians. And then one day in September, things were going good. This teacher spoke down to me. And I knew it was over. Like all this work to get into school, it's over. But the cool thing about a performing arts high school, the way it's laid out, in addition to regular classrooms, we have individual rooms you can go into and practice your instrument. So instead of doing my usual routine of throwing a desk or running my mouth or getting myself sent to the principal, I stormed out of class and went into a room to go play drums by myself. Can I play drums for you? Yeah. And by the way, I brought this on the plane. I usually play a big drum set, but this is my way of showing you what I do. So I sat there in the room playing drums by myself. Thank you. I love you guys. You guys are a great audience. Thank you. You know, I want to tell you a total side note from this presentation. When I started speaking about mental health, like at events like this, I worked it out with my therapist that I would have this drum on stage. Because if I got emotional, I could go right to my medication and calm myself down. So sometimes if I start playing, I'm not just always feeling like playing. Sometimes I need to do that. But back to 11th grade. So I did that, and that teacher followed me into the room and said, Michael, what are you doing? I said, I'm just doing my thing. And he said, 15 minutes. Do your thing for 15 minutes. So for the first time in my life, ladies and gentlemen, I calmed down. I didn't get angry. I didn't want to fight anybody. I didn't go to the principal's office, no police, no expulsion, no hospital. It was weird. Around the month of October, I decided I wanted me a girlfriend. And there was this girl, I can't believe I'm telling you all about this, but she just really wasn't having it. She was not into me at all, and I really liked her, and I didn't know what to do with my emotions. So I was in that class, and I just stormed out of class and went into the room to go play drums by myself to deal with my emotion over this girl, and just sat there playing. So that same teacher comes into the room and says, Michael, you need to be in class. And I said, I know, I'm doing my thing. He said 15 minutes, and then he asked me a question that changed my life forever. He said, by the way, you sound really good. Can I hire you to play drums in my band? At that moment, the light bulb went off in my head. When I got angry, upset, and emotional and acted out the other way, I got suspended, expelled, or went to the hospital or the police. But when I acted out on the drums, people wanted to give me money. So I approached my parents as a high school senior with the conversation no parents of a high school senior want to have when their other child is talking about law school. And I said, Mommy and Daddy, I want to be a drummer. And their heads went down like this. But you know what, it was really interesting because I went to college, and in my first year of college, all my friends were having fun after the first semester, going out, hanging out, but I couldn't hang out with anybody because at 18 years old, after my first semester, I was being flown around the country and being paid thousands of dollars to play drums. And it was cool. You know, people ask me sometimes what the most success I had with drumming was, and actually it was during the recession of 2008. I couldn't talk about my job because I was working more than anybody. I was super busy that year with work coming in. And you know what's really cool about playing drums? I could be in New York City, angry in my car, fists clenched, knowing that I'm driving to a bar to play James Brown and get paid a few $100s to do it. And that's where I learned to take my challenges and turn them into a strength for me. And I just want to be very honest with you that I stand up here as your keynote speaker and I still struggle with anger. I still struggle with depression. I still struggle with anxiety. In fact, a lot of times I actually think it's worse than when I was as a youth. But I've learned some different tools. So as life was going on, my career worked out, but I eventually started to realize that I didn't want people to know about my past. And I still struggled with a lot of the same issues. And a lot of times, if I was in a situation with new friends, I didn't want them to find out about my mental health challenges because they might not want to be my friend. And the best was going out on a date with a woman. I'd go out on a date, the first date would be good, the second date would be good, and then she would ask about my childhood. And I'd tell her about my childhood, and she got really scared, like she's dating a psycho, and then she wouldn't call me again. So I realized that for me, this was my unique way of experiencing stigma in the world. I couldn't let people know about my mental health challenges. And Mommy and Daddy told me when I was younger, they said, Mike, nobody can ever know about this. No one can ever know about your mental health challenges. It's gonna hurt you in the future if people know about this. You've gotta get help, you gotta get better. No one can know about it. Those words stay in my head every single day. But it was at that point, around 2011, that I realized something needed to change. I was actually in New York City, 2011. I'm an adult now, and I started having a breakdown. It was one of the worst breakdowns of my life. I was that person on the street screaming and yelling at people, and I did not know what to do. So I made a phone call to a mental health professional, and that really changed the course of my future. Because I learned at that point that stigma was a thing that we all experience. I wasn't the only one. And when I learned that, I started to do some research for myself into what stigma is, because it's a word we use a lot. We throw it around everywhere. Fight the stigma, stomp out stigma. But what does it really mean? I learned that stigma is a cycle, and this is where, ladies and gentlemen, I really need you to listen to me very carefully here. Stigma is a 3-part cycle. Check this out. It starts with shame. So you might have a challenge and you feel ashamed about it. The shame leads to silence. You don't talk about it. And the silence leads to sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and if you're not careful, suicide. Let me say it again. Stigma starts with shame. Shame leads to silence. Silence leads to sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and suicide. This actually affects not only people who are struggling, but their loved ones. You might have a family member you feel ashamed about. You don't talk about it. And that leads to even worse things. The reason I flew all the way down from New York City to Orlando to be here with you today is because I have a solution for you. And I promise you, if you listen to me carefully, you're going to learn some things about yourself right now that are going to change you forever. I promise you that as your speaker. So let's just take this idea of stigma starts with shame, right? Stigma starts with shame. How do we get to the opposite of shame? Well, the first thing I had to do was go on Google and figure out what the opposite of shame was. Pride and honor. That's the opposite of shame. So rather than feeling ashamed, I wanted to get to a place of pride and honor. And the way we do that is really simple. You're going to love it. So simple. Self-care. When you take care of yourself, for some oddball reason, you start to feel better about yourself. Especially parents. You know, I speak to a lot of moms. I was just talking to someone before about this. I speak to a lot of moms, and a lot of moms tell me, I take care of everybody else first. Yeah. If you are going to go and tell me that after my presentation, I'm going to say, stop lying to yourself. That's not true. You have to take care of yourself first before you take care of others. If you don't, then you're not going to be able to fully love others. I learned about self-care the hard way. So I live in New York City, and I came home to something I will never forget. I had a leak in the ceiling in the living room. I don't like leaks. They make me very upset. So there's a leak in the ceiling, and I came home, and I needed to do something about it. So I went to the apartment that was above me, knocked on the door, no response. Okay. So I left a little note under the door with my phone number and a smiley face. Call me. There's a leak. I'm thinking this person's floor must be flooded. No response for 2 days. 2 days later, I came home, the leak is worse. I'm getting really angry now because this is not good, and the ceiling is starting to just have this big spot in it. So I went upstairs again. No response. Okay. So finally, after about a week, I came home to something I will never forget. The ceiling had fallen. And it fell on my hamster's cage. The hamster didn't die, but he looked really scared. Now, you can mess with me, but you don't mess with my pets. That's crossing a line for me. I was angry beyond belief that my hamster had to experience this. So I walked out of my apartment with my fists clenched. I was punching walls. I was angry. I'm walking down the streets of New York, and I get a phone call. And it's the guy who lives upstairs. And he's got a real attitude. And he said, hey, I got these notes from you. What's your problem? What's my problem? I said, yo, you need to meet me in front of my apartment right now. I did not care. I was ready for a fight. So I go back to my apartment, ready to fight this person. And when I get there, standing in front of me is a 6'5" German bodybuilder. It's amazing how your perspective changes. It was like, hi, can I show you the leak? I made him apologize to the hamster, though. He did apologize to the hamster. And we exchanged business cards. I just thought it was a weird day in the life of Mike. And I told him I'm a drummer. okay, this is weird. The leak got fixed. He took care of it. But around New Year's, I decided to pursue the resolution that most adults have at New Year's. I decided I want to lose some weight, get myself in shape, and find me a lady. That was my goal. So I decided to call the big German bodybuilder to help me out. So I'm in the gym now. I'm in this bodybuilding gym with the big German bodybuilder in a tiny room. And he's one of these people that he stares at you but doesn't break eye contact. Like when you're talking to someone, it's okay to look in their eyes, but at some point you want to break eye contact or it gets creepy, right? So he's just staring at me. And he was asking me lots of questions I didn't want to answer, like what do I like to eat? And I told him the truth. I like bacon, cheese, and garlic, and I don't want to give it up. Any injuries? No, just give me a routine to lose my tummy and build my arms. He just kept staring at me. It was really getting awkward. So finally, after a while, I just said, I have to get going. I have to get on a call. And he said, wait, I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, I've been to your website. I said, oh, my drumming website. What did you think? He said, no, your mental health website. It's like, oh, you got something you want to talk about? I'll never forget this man looking at me in the eyes, big bodybuilder, no body fat, and he started crying. And he said, Mike, I've got bipolar disorder, and I battle a lot of the same mental health challenges you do. And this guy's got a really successful business. He's doing really well. He's on the cover of bodybuilding magazines, and he's really struggling with mental health challenges. And he apologized to me and said, you know what? I can't help you with losing your tummy or building your arms. But he handed me a piece of paper with a workout routine and nutrition for my depression and anxiety. And he said, I promise if you follow this, you'll start to feel better about yourself. And since then, I've been working with him to do workouts and eat a certain way where I started to feel better about myself. Now, the ironic thing is I could be anywhere in the country, in the middle of nowhere, and be in a steakhouse by myself, and somehow the trainer will text me and say, hey, how's it going? That's kind of weird. But needless to say, something strange started to happen in my life, ladies and gentlemen. When I started taking care of myself and exercising, I started to feel better about me. I didn't really care that I had depression. I didn't think of it as a liability anymore. And that was okay. So the thing that I challenge all of you to think about is what can you do to start taking care of yourself to feel better about you? And let me explain something. There's a difference between self-care and escape activities, okay? Self-care are things that you do intentionally to nurture yourself and grow yourself, like exercise, meditation, prayer, painting. Escape activities, Netflix, Facebook, Instagram, those are escape activities. And again, we all do them in life, but when we think that's self-care, we're deceiving ourselves. So the thing that I challenge you all to do is start taking care of yourself. One quick thing I want to say on this, I got to speak to 1,500 people a few months ago, 1,500 people at a self-care conference. I was their big keynote speaker, right? And I'm at this point in the presentation, I'm talking about self-care. These are all adults, right? And I lied to the group. You should never lie as a speaker, but I lied to the group. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I did the Mike Veny self-care assessment on you. And they're looking around like, what assessment are you talking about? And I told them very honestly that at 6 o'clock that morning, at a self-care conference, at 6 o'clock in the morning, 1,500 people, I went in the hotel gym at 6 a.m. There was only 2 people in there. The night before at the bar, there was 300. Yeah, the look on their face. You have to be intentional about self-care. And if you want to help a child who's struggling, you have to become the model for self-care. You can't tell them to start doing it. You need to model it. And if you don't have enough time, you need to figure it out if you care about your child. It's one of the most important things you can do. So when you take care of yourself, you feel better about yourself. That's how you transform shame. How do you transform silence? This is one of my favorite ones. Silence. Nobody likes to talk about mental health. So I'm about to tell you something that I did. I did an experiment, and you're all starting to know me. I like to do some interesting things. I need you as a group to promise me that you will not do this. Say, I promise. Say it like you mean it. I can't stand the term mental illness. I love you guys. So I personally can't stand that term, and I decided to do an experiment for an entire year. I decided to introduce myself to every single person I met. Say, hi, my name is Mike, I'm mentally ill. I just wanted to see what would happen. Again, I do not like the term mental illness. I don't use that term, but I wanted to see what would happen. And keep in mind, for my work, I have to go to networking events, be very professional, and meet with CEOs and discuss money and do fundraisers. Every person I met, hi, I'm Mike. I'm mentally ill. That was an interesting year. Nobody ran from me. Nobody wanted to attack me. I got a lot of hugs that year. A few people cried. A lot of people asked me questions. But I got invited to more parties, hired for more work, hit on by more women than I ever have in my life. Now let me explain something. I had to ask myself, Mommy and Daddy told me not to talk about this. Everyone says you shouldn't talk about this. Why was it okay? It's because I was okay with me. When you're okay with you, it doesn't matter what you say. And that's where it's important to first practice self-care to feel better about yourself. No matter who I spoke to, it was okay. I found myself in an elevator. I don't like elevators, by the way. They scare me, especially ones that don't fully stop on the floor. So I'm in this tiny elevator, and this woman gets on the elevator, and I've got wide shoulders, and I'm just kind of standing there, and I said, hi. She said, hi. And I said, this building is sketchy. She didn't find that funny. She goes, I work here. I said, well, whoops. I said, ma'am, what do you do? She said, I'm a therapist. I said, I'm mentally ill. Can I have your business card? You can laugh, but she's been my therapist ever since. I made it a normal part of conversation, people. If you're going to be my friend, we're going to talk about my mental health. I'm going to tell you about going to the psychiatrist. I'm going to tell you about my medication. I'm going to talk about it in a loud voice. Sometimes we are the stigma because we talk about, at these conferences, stomping the stigma and fighting it, but then we go out there in the world and it's like, shh, don't talk about it. We have to talk about it in a normal voice. It's not a problem out there. It's us in here. You know, I'm a big believer in legislation. Do you all want to see more legislation around mental health? Yeah, give me a round of applause if you want to see more legislation. So, now I want to say something here. I get hired to speak in the deep south of the United States, in some real conservative areas. They bring me in these churches, and I swear to you, I ask them before they bring me in, I say, you see my videos, you know what comes out of my mouth, you want me to come speak in the church? And they say, yeah. And I stand there in these churches in Georgia, Texas, and I say something you should not say in church. Same-sex marriage. Because there's one thing that everyone can agree with, regardless of whether you support it or not. The reason the LGBTQ community got legislation is because they forced it into everyday conversation. Whether or not you supported it or not, you had to hear about it. They did the best job in American history of changing legislation because they talked about it. And we need to model them. We need to be just as loud about mental health. So it's really important that whatever your disability is, or if it's just mental health challenges that you struggle with, that you become loud and talk about it every single day. And I challenge you in the next 24 hours to find a way to talk about it with someone you don't usually talk about it with. It's going to be a great experience for you, I promise you. So number one, the key to transforming shame is to take care of yourself. Practice self-care. The key to transforming silence is to have conversations. And the key to transforming sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and suicide is connection. You got to learn to connect with each other. And that's what you're doing at this event. Clap for each other. You're connecting. And I want to say something about what I mean by that. You know, when you reach out to someone else for support, you help yourself. When you listen to someone, you help yourself. and you help others at the same time. And for a lot of the challenges we struggle with, we feel very lonely. We feel very isolated. Even in this room, many of you feel lonely and isolated. So it's really important to be intentional about that. I want to share one little thing with you. I actually wrote a book. It's my first book. It's called Transforming Stigma. See, it looks like this. It's got like a Batman mask on it. And just a few things about this book. It's about my journey, but it's also about this presentation. It's this presentation in great detail. The first week this book came out, we went to #1 on Amazon in children's health, teen health, and mental illness. And I've been selling out like crazy, so I only have a few left. And I wanted to actually, I wanted to read you something from my book. Can I read you something real quick from it? Because it's about advocacy. So one of the things that I want you to think about when connecting with others, especially at this conference here, is stories. When we share stories, we connect with each other's heart. When we share facts, we connect with each other's minds. And I want to share this little thing from my book here. In late 2017, the hashtag #MeToo spread across the world as women shared their stories of sexual harassment. As the movement grew, more and more women came out as they shared their stories, and changes began to take place. Well-known movie stars and personalities who had allegedly been harassing men and women for years were fired, resigned, and even replaced. Start talking. Your story is a superpower. I recommend by starting small. Share anecdotes with people in your life. When someone says they are struggling with mental health challenges or on a new medication, share about a time that you were struggling. And start small. That's really, really important to do. So some of you might not be comfortable like I am of just throwing it all out there, but you can start small. And what you'll start to see is that it takes away a lot of the pain. When you start to share a story, it takes away some of the pain. So I encourage you to do that. The other question that I get a lot of times, especially when connecting with others, is what do you say to someone who is struggling with a mental health challenge? This is one of the hardest things. You can find so much on the internet, but I want to give you 2 things that you can say that will help the person guaranteed. 1, help me understand. And after you say it, shut up. No advice, no advice. Help me understand. And the other thing you can ask them is, how can I support you? And shut up. Because I got to be very honest with you. Even if I'm struggling, and I have been through this for many years, and you came up to me and started giving me advice when I'm in a bad place, I'm not going to want to listen to you. But if you said, help me understand, it might get me to open up. So parents, that's something you can do. If those of you who have friends are struggling, start trying to do that. The other thing is you can be intentional with others about doing nice things with other people. A lot of times in life, we don't spend time with friends. We don't do nice activities. So I'd like to challenge you all right now. Can you all stand up? So I'm going to give you about a minute on the clock here. We're all about connecting, right? Now I need you to ask for permission when you do this. Say, is it okay if the person says no? Don't. But I'm giving you 1 minute to get 3 hugs. Go for it. I got it.
I'm going to get my 3rd one now. I already got 3.
Okay, you can have a seat. You can have a seat. Just 3. Just 3. I turned you into a bunch of 8-year-olds. But you notice that when you started doing that, the energy in the room started to change a little bit. It's really important to be intentional with people. When I'm in New York City, I am on the road every week, but when I'm in New York City, I have appointments with people to go hang out in the park, to go for coffee. If you all are going to be my friends, we're going to hang out. I'm going to be like, when are we hanging out? It's really important to do that, especially sitting around a table with people that you love. Really, really important to do. So that being said, I want to just share a few more things with you. First of all, when I shared my story with you before, when I told you about me growing up, the hero in my story was my mother. And my mom changed my life by giving me this gift right here. Sadly, 2 years ago, almost to the day, my mom died. And so it's been a little tough. I think I'm gonna have to sit down for this one and tie my shoe because my shoe's loose. But that's what my mom also taught me to do, is tie my shoe. But the thing is, my mom died, and I have to be very honest with you. I've been really struggling. Some days are harder than others, but it's been really hard. And one of the things that I have to be conscientious of, I'm a public figure. I do a lot on television. I'm on the radio all the time. I never, ever say anything negative about family, friends, but I made a rule for myself that if the person's dead, they're fair game. I'm sorry, Mommy. So I have to tell you the truth. When I was younger, my mom was a good mom, but she also wasn't emotionally available to me. When I would get upset and I was little, she didn't know how to help me process my sadness. She would just sit me in front of a TV. So I never learned how to deal with my emotions. And this is why when I went to school, I acted out. She was also emotionally abusive and made it really difficult for me to interact with others because I was never sure of myself. And again, my mother loved me and did the best that she could, but she also had this other side to her. Now, when I tell people about that, some of you might think I had a parent like that. And for a lot of people, that's not as bad as something else that you might have gone through, and I'm not comparing here. But either way, it's a trauma for me. And a lot of times when we use the word trauma, we think Civil War. It's got to be something really big. But trauma can be very, very subtle. Trauma can happen every single day to us. So it's really important to address those things. So for the past 2 years, I've been working really hard with my therapist to address this trauma. And what I learned in the past 2 years, and this is something that if you take nothing else from my presentation today, just take this. One of the best things that you can do when you're struggling, get ready for this one, is learn to just sit with your feelings. Hardest thing in the world to do. Just sit with your feelings, no matter what they are. I told you that several years ago, I made a call, 2011, right? I was having a breakdown. And I want to tell you what happened in that call. It was a really ugly conversation. I asked this woman that I knew, I said, look, this is Mike, the drummer. I need help for my mental health. I'm not doing well. I'm going to die. And she goes, Mike, what's up? How are you? I'm like, it's not that kind of conversation. I'm in a bad place. And she just kept going, so good to hear from you. You're not listening to me. I can't stand that. So I said, look, you need to get me hooked up with a therapist or something. I'm going to die. And she said, can I hire you to be a mental health speaker at my conference for youth? I said, no. I don't want to speak about mental health and share my story. But somehow she bullied me into it. And I went up there and spoke like I'm speaking to you all right now, and it changed my life forever. It changed my life forever to actually come out of the closet with my own story and be okay with it. And that's how I actually got started speaking about mental health. So keep in mind that sharing your story does wonderful things. That being said, just a few things, because you're going to see me tomorrow. I'm going to do a Q&A after this. I know the parents have to go soon, so I'm going to wrap this up. So after the parents leave, we'll start the Q&A. I've got a few copies of my book for sale. I also have an article on self-care over there, how to practice self-care without feeling selfish. I got it so you can make copies of it and share it with your friends. Also, you can find my book on Amazon. If you'd like me to come to your school or organization, let me know. I love doing this stuff. But that being said, let's have a real moment here. Let's have a real honest moment. We live in a world where you got to watch what you say to people, right? Like, let's just be honest. You got to watch what you say to people. And we are a very divided country right now. Would you agree with that? I learned about this the hard way. Again, if you learn nothing from me, watch what you say to people. I was in Newark Airport in New Jersey. It was one of those early airport days for me. I was actually going to Los Angeles to shoot a music video. And I'm in the airport, and I'm looking for the number one thing that we all look for in the airport. An outlet to charge my phone. And this is before I had my iPhone. I had this real ghetto T-Mobile phone that would not hold a charge. This ghetto T-Mobile phone, and it was this rough day. It was so bad. I did not shave that day. I was looking real scruffy. I didn't take a shower, and my butt crack was hanging out. I did not care. I was looking real rough. So I'm in the airport. And again, you gotta watch what you say to people. Watch what you say to people. I found an outlet right by the gate. And the only way to get to this outlet was I had to ask this attractive woman if I could share the outlet with her. This is not the day for this. And she really wasn't my type. She looked very, very conservative, just not my type. But I went up to her, and I hovered. And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I share your electricity?" You gotta watch what you say to people. She looked up at me with the look that women give guys when they're not interested and was like, "Excuse me?" So I sat down next to her on the floor, and she did the thing I call the squirm that women do when they squirm away from you, right? But you know me, I'm friendly, so I decided to talk to her. I said, "Hi, I'm Mike." And she gave me her name, was kind of rolling her eyes. I told her about my mental health stuff. She kept rolling her eyes. Turns out she worked for a law firm in New York City. So I'm thinking in my head, law firm, they got money to bring in speakers, right? Bring me in to talk about mental health. So I gave her my brochure, my big giant brochure, and she just folded it up, rolled her eyes, put it in her bag. I asked her for her contact information. She just gave me her card. That was it. Totally was not having it. So when I got to Los Angeles, I decided to text her and say, "Hi, this is Mike from the airport. Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" This was not me asking her on a date. This is just what we do in New York City. We love to get coffee with each other, right? Yeah. And she gave me some story she said, "Yeah, it was good to meet you, but I'll be back in a month." She was totally blowing me off, right? So I put it on the calendar to text her in a month, right? So I texted her again. I said, "Hi, this is Mike, the guy you met in the airport." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I kind of remember you." She's like, "I'm not sure what this is about, but we can get coffee." And she said, "It's going to be a small window of time we got." So I go to coffee with her, and she looked totally different than she did at the airport. Totally different. So if you can picture her, she's about this tall, I think, and Caucasian, brunette, blue eyes. But her hair was down to the floor. And she had this long skirt. And I said to her, I was like, "Ma'am, you got some long hair." And she kind of looked up at my head and just didn't say anything. And she said, "Well, it's part of my faith." I said, "What's your faith?" And she said, "Well, I'm a conservative, apostolic, Pentecostal Christian." And I didn't know. I said, "What is that?" She explained to me that it's a very conservative form of Christianity where they, not only do they have to go to church, but they got to speak in tongues. When they go on dates with each other, they got to be a Bible's length apart. And I'm just the women don't wear makeup. They only wear skirts. And I was like, whoa. And I said to her very honestly, I said, "I don't do religion. It's one of my triggers." I said, "You're not going to give me any pamphlets or make me go to church, right?" She said, "No." So we sat down. It was a weird conversation. You got to watch what you say to people. She said to me, "Mike, I have to text 3 women from my church to let them know I'm safe because I've seen your history." Oh, wow. You go do that, right? Okay. So here we are sitting in this coffee shop. And by the way, this is like the divided country. Again, 2 different sides of the country sitting at a table. 2 different faiths. I mean, totally extreme. We're looking at each other. And then she asked me the real tough question. She said, "Can you tell me about your mental health challenges?" I said, "Sure." In fact, I told her everything more than I told you. I went into some details that you should not say to people. And she just looked at me like, "Okay." And I told her, I said, I don't go to church, but you probably have mental health challenges in the church. And she said, maybe we do. Whatever. It was a very awkward conversation. And I put it all out there. I told her more than I said to you. Stuff you should not say to people in this world, especially in such a divided country. But on July 3rd, she became my wife. In closing, I really encourage you to start having the uncomfortable conversation. I love you, everybody. So we're going to take, I guess, a little transition break for the parents. Parents, I got to kick you all out. And then we're going to go into some Q&A. Okay, we got question Q&A.
All right, good. You got it for reception.
So I'll be coming back in just like 1 minute once everyone gets settled, because I'm going to be doing Q&A. I will shortly. I'm going to be here still. I'm just doing the second part of my presentation. So I promise.
I have to leave. I don't care. This is me. Contact me. Told my son's story pretty much. I'm saying a lot. We won't do a lot of the same. But he's 22 and we're on the other side of it now. So, but I want to talk to you. What you said about the organizations?
Okay.
We have to talk.
Yeah, we'll do that right now. Yeah. Yes. Hi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume here. So if you can all have a seat. By the way, I'm trying something brand new today. A lot of people ask me how they can stay in touch with me. So I actually got my first ever slide that Jesse helped me with here. And if you want to stay in touch with me, you can get all my contact information. If you text the word drum to 85307. I don't even know the number yet. I just got this done yesterday. So if you text that, it'll put you on my email list, give you my Facebook information, all that stuff. Yes. Oh, my book. A few people asked about this. It's $20. So if you want that, and let me know if you want me to sign it. But before we go any further, I wanted to ask you all, and by the way, thank you for being a great audience. I just want to say to get up there and share my stuff. It's very emotional for me. So thank you for that. But before I go any further, I would like to ask who in this room has the first question?
Raise your hand if you have a question.
We got one right there, the brave one. And you're going to get the microphone. We're running this like a talk show now.
My only question is how do you put in a number on the board onto my phone?
Oh,
I can do it.
yeah, you take out your text messaging feature and type the word drum and text it to 85307. That's a great question. Yes, you have a question. Hi. Oh, wait. Yeah. We've got another one over here.
So I wanted to know more about OCD, because me and my best friend, we struggle with that a lot.
Oh my, okay. OCD. She has a great question about it. First of all, I want to say this, that OCD manifests differently for different people. So what I might experience, actually the three of us might experience something different. OCD stands for obsessive-compulsive disorder. And for those of us who struggle, one of the first parts of it, let's talk about obsessing, we can't stop thinking about something. It's like we just cannot, I know for me, it like rules my life. And like I could try to meditate and all this other stuff, but whatever it is just still keeps going. It actually becomes distracting when you're trying to like get schoolwork done and other stuff, you just can't stop. The other part of it is compulsions. So compulsions are behaviors that you just do over and over again that you just can't stop doing. For me, when I work from home, I have to hide my toothbrush because every time I go to the bathroom, I just have this need to brush my teeth. And so I have to like literally hide that from myself. And some people, it's a lot, more intense and it can become a real challenge. There's a wonderful book you both should try called Brain Lock that really helped me big time with OCD. It's like the one book on Amazon that has the most reviews for it. But it's something that you can go to therapy for and talk with someone about, and it's okay. There's a cool side to OCD, I actually want to say this. There's a good side to it. Some of us people with OCD are very detailed. We like our checklists. There are many jobs in the world that will pay you a lot of money to be very detailed. So keep that in mind that a lot of the challenges sometimes we have can be used as a strength. So don't look at it as something you have to like sweep under the rug and get rid of. So that's a great question, but Brain Lock is a book for both of you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
I also am a drummer like you. My name is Jason also, and I also like your word like you said. And I am a drummer, and I like the way you were talking about how your mental health and how your situation, and that's what I'm going through right now because I'm out of school since 2014, and that's one of my problems is I have anger issues, and that's how I deal with it. Like I wanted to play my drum set for years, and I wanted to have one, and I still want to have one for years.
Cool. Yes, in my hotel room, I've got my drumsticks and my drum pad. So tonight, if I'm in a bad place, I could just put on some music and just do my thing. So I think it's important to have your tools for that. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I have a question. My name is Adrian Guevara. I have a question. Can I play your drum?
Can you play my drum? Yeah, come up real quick. You can hit one note real quick. Real quick. And you're the only one that gets this. Everyone else, we're going to do this tomorrow. So you can go hit it real quick. Thank you. Yes, we have another. Where's the microphone? Oh.
Hi, my name is James Loggins, and I'm also trying, like you, I'm trying to become a motivational speaker. What can you tell me, like, what do I need to do? And, like, what I'm trying to say is, maybe you can give me some advice on what I can start doing or something like that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question because I see motivational speaker next to my name all the time on the internet, and I kind of like don't necessarily like being a motivational speaker. I like helping people. Like that's my thing. To be very transparent with you, I have severe stage fright, so it's really actually very hard for me to get up here and do this. But one of the things that I would suggest to you is learn to just practice getting up in front of people and talking. Like that's the hardest thing in the world, just to actually stand up and talk. The other thing, there's an organization called Toastmasters that can really help you with your speaking skills. And it's like really cheap to join, and they're everywhere all over the US, and that will be a really important step for you. And the third thing is find speakers that you like and just follow what they do. So to also be honest with you, I still work on my speaking skills all the time. I was on the plane today thinking about all of you, what I was gonna share, writing notes and stuff like that, thinking, okay, I'm totally not gonna remember what to say, the stuff we all go through. So I just think it's important to, again, Toastmasters, speak in front of people whenever you can, and find speakers you like and try to model them. That's an excellent question. We can talk more about that later too. So thank you.
My name is Nacy. I got a job.
What?
Job.
Oh, you got a job. Congratulations.
Hey, I have the questions. How do you exactly go to school?
Can you say that again?
What's your question?
Child from school.
How did I do in school?
Yeah.
Depend on my behavior. So I was constantly in the principal's office. I did okay. I wasn't the greatest student in the world, but one of the things that has happened in my life recently is that I've actually been taking a lot of classes now. So I'm actually a much better student now than I was because I like what I'm learning, I guess, and it's not forced on me by the school. So I'm so-so, I guess.
You were talking about schools, about possibly going to schools to speak and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My school is Simmons Career Center in Plant City, Florida. If you could possibly go there for, if that's okay.
If I could just show up there?
Well, I know my principal's name is Mr. C.
Yeah.
And if you could get in touch with him and talk to him.
Sure.
He might know you because you have been on the news, correct?
Yeah.
A part of the news.
Yeah.
Major, other question. That book, is it not only give you helpful information, but it gives you your life story too,
Yeah,
correct?
so the first, by the way, I didn't want to write the book. I didn't want to write a book. I'm like, people were like, you need to write a book. I'm like, that's stupid. It's like a giant book report. You're like, I don't want to do it, right? But I wrote the first half of it as my story in great detail, like more than I've told you, just great detail. The second half of the book is all about advocacy in you. It's about self-care, how to actually do it, practical steps, how to have the conversation, and how to become a better advocate. So it's divided into two parts, and it's gotten a lot of good reviews on Amazon. So I'm not saying it's good, but it's got a lot of good reviews.
Hello, my name is Ben.
Hi, Ben.
I like to play drums. I'm also a drummer. Who's like some of your favorite drummers growing up?
Oh, the conversation I really want to have. I like drumming that's really loud and in your face. And I typically like drummers like John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. And you know, I should give you all a drumming assignment right now. If you go on YouTube and type in drummer from Led Zeppelin and you watch this guy play, he looked like he had anger management issues. Like, for real, like, you know? And sometimes I wonder, when it comes to great musicians, if what went into their skill was maybe some of their mental and emotional challenges. So something to keep in mind. So John Bonham is one of my favorite ones. The animal from the Muppets? You know, true story about Animal from the Muppets. In all the drum magazines, Animal makes it to like the top 5 drummers of all time in like every other issue, so. What? Modern Drummer magazine is one to look into. So yes, any others?
How did you find friends that supported you and believed in you and still brought you around to their friends?
Ooh, how did I find friends? So, can I give you 2 terms to think about, especially at this event here? When it comes to, and I love his question about friends, when it comes to people in your life, there's 2 groups. There's friends, and then what we call social capital. And social capital is what's going to become the people you learn to network with, and some of you will be learning about that, some of you already know about that. Friends are really, really tough. And one of the things I had to do is go through a lot of trial and error. Like, I had to fire a lot of friends in my life. Some people were just not the right fit. Some people I just had to say, I'm going to be friends with you from afar. But what I basically had to do was just trust myself and be myself. And lately, I'm really happy because I think I have like too many friends, and they really love me just being me. So the thing that I encourage you to do is just keep being yourself. Because one of the worst things that we can do is just hold back who we are because we think people are going to judge us. And I know that that's something you know, but it's really important to understand, be yourself, be yourself and be you. And if you're going to be my friend, I want you to be you. So, thank you.
All right, so I have a question. Very important. You said Batman, but is that the one you most connect to in the DC and Marvel world?
No. The Hulk. So I actually, I opened the book talking about the Hulk, and the Hulk has been around for a while. In the 70s, there was a show called The Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno, and the show was very, very popular. And one of the reasons I think it was very popular, and this is just an opinion, is because we can all identify with the Hulk at some level. He's a mild-mannered physicist, Dr. Bruce Banner, who's trying to hold it together and look good. And when he gets triggered, he turns into this green monster that's not really bad and not really good. And I think we all have things that we just hold in, but when we get triggered, a monster comes out in our own way. And that's one of the reasons I know I identify with the Hulk. So, great question. We got another.
I have a question. I have really bad OCD and another thing called schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering how I could stop that and deal with it.
That's a great question. I'm not a mental health professional, but one thing I encourage you to think about is rather than stopping it, learn to live with it, because sometimes the hardest thing is just accepting that this is how you are, and that's okay, it's just unique. But I promise you, if you talk to a mental health professional and start getting yourself help, you can live a happy life. And even as I said to the two young ladies here, when we were talking about OCD before, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a woman, and I can write down the name for you after. Her name is Eleanor Longin, and she did a TED Talk on schizophrenia and hearing the voices in her head. And her life changed once she became okay with it and started to listen to the voices, and they were actually teaching her about herself. So that's why I encourage you, rather than try to get rid of it in your mind, learn to live with it and learn that it's a special part of you, and that's okay and not a bad thing at all. But thank you so much for sharing that. Hi.
He would like to know how long you have been drumming.
I have been drumming for 29 years. And I still take lessons. I love all the questions here. All your hands up.
Do you have any friends you are super close to, like me and Danica?
Like who?
Her and Danica.
Oh, yes, I have some friends that I'm super close to. My friend Colleen, she's a really good friend of mine, my friend Chris, and I try to see them once a month, at least, like we go out and just have good food.
My question is, what advice would you give those who have went through something similar to what you have went through?
Ooh, so much advice. What advice would I give? If you went through something like I did, or just your own thing, my biggest advice is learn to love yourself. Because the hardest thing about some of our challenges is that we end up hating ourselves for them, or we end up feeling ashamed about it. And it's really important to learn to love yourself. You know, we all have challenges, and it's okay. And one thing I want to remind you, I didn't say this before, two things to remember. Mental health challenges are confusing and frustrating. You know, when I was doing push-ups once in the gym, some kind of like cool push-up routine where I moved my hands like this, and I ended up hurting my wrist trying to impress some girl in the gym, you know, and I totally played it off though, right? Like nothing was wrong, and I just quickly left the gym. But I knew when I got home it was either a sprain, a muscle strain, or a broken wrist. And I was gonna ice it for a day or two. If it didn't get better, call a doctor, right? That's what you do. When it comes to mental health challenges, it's not like that. Most people don't wake up and go, oh, I'm depressed, you know? So it's really important for all of us to embrace that our challenges might be confusing, and there's not always a clear answer as to what's going on, and that's okay. And that's something I wish someone would have told me when I was younger. It would have made my journey much easier. So thank you for that.
I like how you speak today, but do you still have any obstacles that you have to overcome?
Absolutely. I really struggle with something called emotional dysregulation. And for those of you who might know what this is, my emotions become so intense that it feels like I'm like coming out of my skin with it. And it makes it really hard to focus, to socialize, to even talk with my wife. So I still go to therapy. I go to therapy once a week. I have a support group that I go to once a week. I'm on medication for depression, and I even go to a psychiatrist once a month. So I'm still working with that. I also have really bad anxiety, and my OCD is constantly a distraction in my life. And it's to the point where, I mean, my therapist, she lets me just call her or text her sometimes because my OCD is so bad. So I still battle with these same challenges, but here's the difference. They're not ruling my life. So I have the same challenges, they're just not ruling my life. Great question.
I did say, my question is, how did your mom pass away today?
Oh, how did my mom pass away? No, it's a great question. My mom had a rare form of cancer, and she got it about 6 years ago. And it was a long, slow process that was really hard to watch. And fortunately, you know, I will say this, throughout the process of my mom dying, my therapist made me call her several times a week just to check in. So again, having some kind of support is really, really important. And I really credit my therapist, the one I met in the elevator, for helping me get through that. Great question, thank you.
I was wondering how you deal with your anxiety.
How do I deal with my anxiety? Well, let's take today before I got on the stage. One of the ways that I deal with my anxiety, the first thing I do is I acknowledge it. Like, I don't run away from it. I can actually like just say, look, I'm anxious. And I'm not ashamed about that. One of the things that I did is, Nikki actually met me when I came in. I went up to my room for a little. I was feeling a little anxious. And so I just sat on the bed and relaxed for a little. I said, let me just relax, take my time for me. Michael and I, we were talking before, right? He was very kind enough, sorry to put you on the spot here, to have a nice little conversation with me before I got on stage, and that really calmed me down. Actually, thank you very much for that. You have a very calming presence. So, and let's hear from Michael. He's been doing all the filming here today. So the thing is, in a sense, without Michael really knowing that about me, I kind of reached out to him in a sense for social support in that sense, and it just felt like a good, comfortable situation. So I encourage you to like find things that just work for you. And here's the key. Sometimes we try to push the anxiety away. It's like I told her before about schizophrenia. We want it to go away. Maybe a lot of times it's just accepting it and being like, I got anxiety, and that's okay. So, great question.
What is your favorite musician or music group?
My favorite musician or music? Depends on the day, but I like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and a lot of hip hop.
Are you going to college?
Huh?
Are you going to college?
Yes. No, I'm not right now.
What's anxiety? What's that?
What's anxiety? Okay, I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm going to try to answer this. For many of us, anxiety is extreme fear, and it manifests for many of us physically, like we feel it in our chest. It makes it very difficult to breathe, and it makes it really hard to concentrate, and just makes it feel like you're uncomfortable in your own skin. And then, you know, at the same time that you're having anxiety, and this is typically called a panic attack, I think, you know that you have anxiety, which makes it even worse. So it's just something that many of us go through. And we all feel anxiety at different points in life. I know for most of us with tests in school, we feel a little anxiety if we have to perform. We feel anxiety if we have to talk to someone we have a crush on. We feel anxiety. But for those of us who really struggle, the anxiety takes over and rules. And that's where the challenge is. So you like my explanation. Thank you. You guys asked some really good questions, by the way.
How you play the drum?
He's asking how you play the drums.
How I play the drums? You want me to play the drums?
You want him to play the drums? Yes.
Okay. I'll play the drums for you. How's that? You know, actually, I learned something. I learned something about a week and a half ago. So to answer your question again about stuff I still go through, about a week and a half ago, I went on a 5-day retreat with a therapist for anger, because I struggle with anger and difficult emotions. And one of the things I learned, this was just a week and a half ago, is that when we listen to bass sounds, which are the deep sounds in music, they actually help with our emotions. And for this drum, when I play the bass sound on it, it's right in the center like this. And it's really good for the emotions. So I like to do a lot of grooves that have a lot of bass, like. Thank you. Thank you, drum. Any others? We got a few more. I'm here for you all, by the way, so ask your questions.
Oh, hey, I know one.
Sure.
Like, why don't you do a drum beat that goes with the tune of your ethnic roots?
You know, wow, that was a first. I love the Family Cafe. Okay, so how can I do this with a straight face now? Like, so my ethnic roots, African American. And so when I play this drum, actually I should tell you about this drum. This drum is called a djembe. Can you say djembe? Djembe. A lot of people see it and they think it's called a bongo. It's not. It's called a djembe. They'll look at you funny if you point to this in the store and call it a bongo and say you want that, okay? And it comes from West Africa, and the definition of the word is actually to come in peace. And so that's one of the reasons that I play it here. And one of the rhythms that's really popular, this is going to be really ironic when I tell you this, one of the most popular West African rhythms is called the cuckoo rhythm. And the cuckoo rhythm is all about celebration. And it sounds kind of like this. Like that. So, thank you. Questions are getting good now.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to say sometimes I go through things and I try to turn to my friends or supposed to be my best friend. Sometimes I don't think she know how to handle things physically or emotionally. So sometimes I feel alone. Stop. And try to handle things on my own, but I really do have so much on my mind all the time. I'm about to tear up now just even talking.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. You know, my heart goes out to you because sometimes when we do talk to people, especially like people we love that we're cool with or whatever, they don't get us. And it's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. But one of the things that I found, and this goes back to the conversation about friends, is that one of the things that we sometimes have to do is really try to have the uncomfortable conversation and let our needs be known. So for instance, with my family, I had to tell my whole family recently, I don't like it when you give me advice. Like, I don't need your advice. I need you to listen. And it might be weird to have a conversation like that, but if they're your friend, they'll understand. You know, if you said to me, like, Mike, we're friends, I need you to just sit with me and listen. That's what I need to start doing as your friend. So it's okay. You know, you have to give yourself permission to make your needs known, and your needs are very, very real. But the worst place you can be is stuck in your own head sometimes. It's like this prison that just is a swamp. And so it's really important when you're struggling to actually reach out and try your best to express what's on your mind. And also trust that, you know, not everyone is gonna have the reaction you want them to. That's the other thing I've had to learn is, like, I could say I'm depressed to Nikki and she might not have the reaction that I wanted. I can't necessarily be mad at her for that, but it's a good opportunity for us to have a good conversation. By the way, I just want to say this about Nikki for a second. So is it okay if I talk about you for a moment? We had this wonderful conversation in Orlando at the National Federation of Families Conference, where I was the speaker. And we just had this great conversation. It was Nikki, me, and my wife. And she mentioned you guys and me coming here, and it was just the warmest experience. So thank you for that. And thank Nikki, because she's the one who found me. So.
Not to be funny. Do the women's like your bald head?
What? Do women like my bald head? No, they don't like it. They want me to have a wig on. That's okay.
My question is, your farms, I have Broncos in my home.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
I played 2 times to like yours.
Cool.
I played yours.
Cool.
I have 2 questions.
She's got
the
a question.
first one is, I get like anxiety and depression really easily. Like, what should I do?
What should you do? I love that we're getting the anxiety questions because it's really important. By the way, anxiety, I think, is the most common, like, mental health challenge. And for some of us, it's social anxiety. I don't know if you've experienced that with being in groups. I know for me, even though I speak at events like this, being in a group like this is really scary to me. It's like, whoa. But one of the things that I've learned to do when I have anxiety is check in with my breathing. So, not trying to push it away, just check in with my breathing and just notice it. Am I breathing really fast? You know, and maybe adjust it. And that can be a really simple thing that might not take it away, but makes it more manageable. So it's kind of like I said to her before, that we want it to go away. We're just like, you know, please go away, anxiety, enough. But sometimes the best you can do is say, you know what? How do I work with it? And once you get some tools around that, does that make sense to you? Once you start to do that, it gets a little better. But you and I can chat more about that. And I'm sure you might have some tips for me too. Oh, can we get the mic up here again? Hold on. I want to hear that question.
What CEOs have you met so far? The CEOs.
What CEOs have I met so far? A lot of the ones on just Wall Street in New York City, where I live. I have to see them for different events. A lot of times I don't even know they're CEOs. I just see them at events and it turns out they're CEOs.
I watched the Undercover Boss show. The Undercover Boss show. Undercover Boss. Yeah.
Oh, I don't really watch TV, so I don't know the Undercover Boss show. Because that gives me anxiety, actually, TV.
Thank you. I am a speaker who travels and gives presentations myself. And the question I wanted to ask you is, you know, you mentioned going to different places in the Deep South, places where you're not always sure if people receive your message. Have you ever been to a place where you were asked to speak and you shared this message and then you found out that that place wasn't accepting of your message and the reception was not always as positive as you thought it would be?
I love your question, and for all of those in this room who are speakers or just do any kind of speaking to a group, this is a really important question. I used to get really conscientious about that and constantly think like, oh my, do they like me? Like, I can't tell. But there got to be a point where I stopped caring if they liked my message or not, or they accepted my message. And all I focus on as a speaker now, like, let's take today. When I was on the plane coming here, I was thinking about all of you and how I can help all of you. I wasn't worried about whether you're going to accept my message or not. So I think it's really important to try to just keep your heart in the right place, that even if they don't accept it, don't worry about that. That's okay. Sometimes you need a little bit of resistance in order to get progress. So it actually happens sometimes that people don't always accept my message, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. One thing I hope people always know is that I care about them, and that's why I do what I do, because I care. So hope that answers your question. Thank you. This is like being on the news, these questions being thrown at me. I love it.
Hi, my name is Aquina. I was just wondering if you feel like you face double stigma because you're African American male dealing with mental illness, and how does your work with legislation help resolve the issues surrounding how mental illness affects black men?
That's a great question. And one thing I want to share with you, what she's basically asking is about stigma in the African American community in particular, and especially me being a black man talking about it. And different groups experience stigma in different ways. So for instance, my wife is writing a book called Transforming Stigma in the Church for people in the church. The Orthodox Jewish community battles it too. Within the African American community, a lot of times it's not talked about at all. It's not talked about at all. And for many of us, there's this stereotype of being a strong black man. And to sit up there and talk about your emotions is almost like a social no-no in certain scenarios. And so what I have tried to do by speaking about it publicly is just make it okay. And by trying to normalize the conversation when I'm around other black people or speaking to a group of black people is what I do to make it normal. So it's really like it starts with me. And it's one of those things where we might not be seeing a lot of progress, but I think it's slowly starting to get better. And I've noticed in the past month, July was Minority Mental Health Month, there's been a lot more in the news that has actually made it much more of a normalized topic. For instance, Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child talking about her challenges, several different athletes coming out talking about it more, and even the controversial Kanye West talking about some of his challenges. So it's becoming more normalized, but keep in mind for all of you, because many of you aren't African American, different groups have different challenges when it comes to stigma. For instance, one group that I want to start talking about, and this is me speaking as a man, is mothers with postpartum depression. Moms who get postpartum depression. So, mom has a baby, she's now real depressed, and people are shaming her because what's wrong with you? You just had a baby, you should be happy. But moms go through real depression to the point where they may not even stand their baby, and it doesn't make them bad mothers. So this is an issue that I want to address, particularly to women, especially coming from a man, see what kind of response that gets, right, from people. And going back to what you said about accepting my response, I don't know what kind of response that's going to have, but it's an important issue. So thank you, and sorry for that long answer to your question, but thank you for your question.
All right, Mike, Christina has a question, but she's a little shy, so I'm going to ask it for her.
Sure.
She wants to know, what advice would you give somebody who is suffering from PTSD?
PTSD takes time. Like, time. And it's really important to talk through it with someone. And one of the things that I've learned from friends who struggle with PTSD is that once you even get to the thing that's the underlying thing, there's so many layers to it that you still have to keep at it. So the biggest advice I would give you is just to keep at it and trust that it's a process, not a destination. You know, we live in a world where, you know, if you want to lose weight, it's like, here's this magic exercise program. You can lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, right? We want to do things very, very quickly, but when it comes to challenges like PTSD or anxiety or depression, it takes a long time, and it's about the process. But I encourage you to look at it in your mind as self-discovery. And I know that if you do speak about it with someone, it's very scary, and that's okay. But I promise you that there is hope on the other side, that it will not one day rule your life if you keep at it. And I've seen people go through that. And if you want to talk more about that with me later, you can. Thank you for that great question.
When you were little, I know that you used to have a rough time, like you used to try to bang the wall, you're trying to commit suicide. I was wondering, what do you do when you're trying to commit suicide?
What do you mean?
Okay. My question is, what did you do when you're trying to commit suicide? Like, did you use a knife? Did you hurt?
How? You know, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer this in a weird way. It kind of doesn't matter, and one of the reasons that sometimes in today's world of mental health, we don't always go into the details of it, because for a lot of people in the room who might be going through that, it might be triggering if I did share it. So it's like something you and I can talk about like individually one-on-one after, but generally, you know, I just simply say that I attempted to die by suicide and just kind of leave it kind of vague, so no one gets triggered. And even, to be very honest with you, even just mentioning that word, for a lot of people in this room, it might be very, very triggering. So it's one of those things where I'm skirting on this interesting line of trying to be clear and transparent, but also sensitive. But great question. Thank you. Uh-oh. It's coming next. I can take it.
Hi, I'm Dakota, and I'm actually afraid to try out for some of the sports teams at my college.
Can you put the mic closer to your mouth?
Oh, sure. Is that better?
Yep.
All right. So I'm trying to try out for more stuff at my college, but I'm kind of afraid to see if they're going to accept me or not, because I tried a few years ago, and then they're like, oh, just because you're in the GD program, you can't do this, you can't do that. So I'm like, looking at them wanting to punch them, to be honest, but it's hard. Do you have any advice of how I can just relax without getting all mad at them?
Yes, you possibly asked one of the best questions of the day. Thank you. Please give him a hand. So he asked a question I love to talk about, rejection, right? Getting rejected for something. And this could be trying out for a sports team. It could be someone that you're interested in romantically and they're just shutting it down. It could be a job that you're looking for. It could be whatever, you know, friend you're trying to talk to and they don't want to talk to you, whatever. One of the things that I've had to learn is rejection is painful. It's very, I mean, I feel it physically. So if I were in your shoes and that were happening to me, I mean, it would destroy me inside. What I have learned is that it's actually important in life to get rejected. And I know that seems counterintuitive because it feels so painful, like why would I tell you to go through this pain? But what I've learned is over time, when you do get rejected enough times, you build up a thick skin and you become okay with yourself. And so there was a point in time where I was getting rejected for speaking about mental health left and right. And it taught me to build up a thick skin and learn to be comfortable with myself. So I encourage you to see it not as a bad thing, but just a part of the process that's going to happen. And I know that's so easier said than done, but we can talk about that more offline, because I think there's more to even be said to that. But that's an excellent question. So for those of you in the room who struggle with rejection, it's okay. It's a part of life. And actually, if you want to be successful, I'm going to say something really bold here. You need rejection. If you want to be successful, you need it. So thank you for asking that. It's a great question. Okay. And we got one over there, too.
Finally, now it was my turn. Whew! All right, so if you could relate yourself with any type of dinosaur, what kind of dinosaur would you relate yourself with?
You know, that's a very uncomfortable question. I'm going to say Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm just going to be... Now I got to try to... I don't know how he walks. I've only seen him in the car. He's got to have the arts like this. Yes, Tyrannosaurus Rex. So, and she had a question over there, too. Her by the door?
Hello. My comment was, I am the eldest sibling of someone who suffered with mental illness challenges. And until recently, my sister and I, as adults, were able to discuss the things and look back on her challenges and like how she's doing now. You mentioned your brother. What's your rapport like, and have you guys ever had the opportunity to have that table talk of your challenges, his feelings about it, your feelings about it, and moving forward?
Great question. We all have different things in our family that are things we just don't talk about, right? So, quick thing, when I called that woman and she didn't help me, she just said she wants me to speak about mental health and I didn't want to do it. I still needed to get help from my challenges. I was in a really bad place, and as you know, when it comes to mental health, you don't get an appointment right away. So because I couldn't get an appointment right away, I went to the second best thing, Google, right? That's where you go to if you need something. And I tried to figure out, what do I need to do to hold it together to do all that. The thing that I came up with were the 3 points in this presentation. That was literally to save my life. And the second one about conversation meant that I had to start talking about it, like I said, to others. So when it comes to family, as a rule, I just talk about it with everyone. Even the 3-year-old. Even the 3-year-old, we talk about my mental health. It's not a taboo subject. So I do talk about it with my brother all the time. We talk very openly about mental health. He talks about a lot of the things that I did to him and how wrong it was and how he's had to battle that. And I listen. You know, I listen. I've had to do a lot of apologizing. I'm going to be doing that probably for the rest of my life. But the thing is, it took me being willing to have that conversation. It wasn't about, I had to not make it about, it's going to be uncomfortable for everyone else. No, I have to start the conversation. So I do that now, and it's become a very normal topic in my family. Like, we just talk about it very loud. So thank you. Great question. Hi.
Hi, my name is Serena, and I would just like to thank you on behalf of the Family Cafe and Florida Youth Council for coming here. We all really appreciate it. And second of all, one of my friends wants to write a book about his mental health experience, and I was wondering if you might be interested in helping him out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you some resources on doing it. I didn't like school when I was younger, and I definitely didn't like writing reports. And writing that book felt like a giant book report. So that was the big thing. But it's doable. You know, we live in a world where anyone can really publish a book. It's not hard, but it's about the resources. So yes, I'd be glad to help you or anyone else that has any questions about it. Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna try to go to a technical school for culinary, but I have dyslexia.
Wait, where's the voice coming from? Oh, okay. I didn't see where Nikki went, so.
I'm good in the kitchen, but when it comes to reading and writing, not my strong suit. So I can make a mad dish if I know the recipe by heart. Did you have any like flaws that you noticed when you went to like your technical school?
Absolutely. I'm going to give you an assignment, actually. Can I give you an assignment? I want you to find all the successful people that are out there with dyslexia, and I'm sure you're going to find a long list.
There is a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. So the thing is, you can't see that as a liability. So yes, reading might not be your strong point, writing might not be your strong point, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a failure. And I think that's important to understand. Even certain athletes in professional sports are good at certain positions and not others. You know, in football, there's some people you do not want on defense that are on offense, right? So it's important to keep that in mind that yes, you have these challenges, that's okay, but learn to work with them. It's kind of like we were talking about with the anxiety before. It's not about trying to get it away or hide from it. Work with it. Work with it, and you'll soon discover your genius. But I guarantee that you keep at it. We're not going to be discussing that at some point in the future. We're just going to be talking about all your victories. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay, do you use your music as a form of therapy? I know when I'm having a bad day, it really helps me just to listen to music.
Yes. When I was on the flight here to Orlando, I got my Beats headphones on and my Spotify songs with a lot of bass, and it's just putting me into my happy place. So yes, I do use, even though I'm a professional musician, like separate from my work, music does calm me down. It does a beautiful thing for me. I don't know why, it just works. So yes, it's important to find outlets. Yeah, so we have time for like one or two more. Nikki's gonna pick.
How many nights do you like to cook when you're home? How many nights do you like to cook?
Usually I only get one. We got time for one more. Who's gonna have the final question? How about over here, right? Wait, raise your hand again. Yep.
I have a question. I always calm down myself by actually listening to music with my speaker that I got.
What was the question?
He likes to listen to music with his speaker that he has.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, we are going to wrap this up. I'm going to be hanging out a little after if you want to say hi to me. I love you guys, and she's going to talk to you now.